Well, I see you have arrived. I admire your courage. And who am I? Just think of me as your very own personal ghost host. I'm here to tuck you in tonight. So, lock your windows and doors, look in your closet and under your bed, and hold your blankets tight, and prepare for 6 terrifyingly true ghost stories. Let's get right into it with a little tale we call the Human Service Agency Ghost.
I worked as a youth worker in a small community in Wisconsin for many years. Part of my job was providing childcare for foster parent training. Our agency building had a lot of ghostly activity the many years I worked there. It was not uncommon to have doors blow open in offices in the basement where there is no airflow, or hearing foot dragging, or running across the carpeted office when it was clear you were the only worker in the building. One of the scariest things that happened was while I was facilitating childcare. I was providing childcare for 5 children ages 4 to 8 years old. There is a large room that leads to the TV room and all of the other offices in the basement. In the TV room, there was a large 84-inch television on the stand in the corner. Some of the children wanted to watch a movie, while others wanted to do an obstacle course in the large room leading to the TV room. The kids had turned the lights off in the TV room and were standing in front of the TV that lit the room like a movie theater. I was standing in between both rooms to keep an eye on everyone while my coworker was using the restroom. Suddenly, the children in the TV room started yelling, "There's a man in here! There's a man in here!" They pointed behind the TV. I hurried into the room to see what appeared to be a large male wearing thin gold glasses and a starter hat standing behind the television. I noticed that as I got closer, the light reflected off of the starter emblem on his hat and the thin gold-rimmed glasses. As I walked closer, the man disappeared. The children that were still alerting me to the man in the room became quiet. We all could not believe what just happened. I assured the children that I saw the man too. No one said anything for the rest of the time.
I think the living is just so timid. I mean, maybe the dude just wanted to watch a bit of TV. Did anyone think of that? Anyway, our next story is from a security guard. It's entitled Securing the Ghost.
I worked security in 2019-2021. One place I was working was a call center. There was 24/7 guards on scene. 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 1 overnight. On the overnight shift, there was no one else in the building. All doors were locked, and all ID scanners were locked as well. I need you to understand, there was no one else in the building. There was no way anyone else could have been in the building with me. This happened in 2020 when everyone was working from home, and the security team were the only people that were even in the building. At every odd hour, I would do a patrol around the building, check into all the rooms I had to swipe at, and return back to the desk. Other than that, I'd sit there and watch the cameras and play my Switch. One night, while I was there for the overnight shift, and the other 2 guards had left, I had to go on a patrol. The lights in the building were all out. It didn't really matter that much, because I could see enough with the lights from the parking lot, and I'd never been afraid to walk around alone there, because I enjoyed the job. I walked through the downstairs, checked all the exits to make sure they were locked, and all the staircases to make sure they were empty. When I moved to the 2nd floor, I heard one of the phones ringing out on the desks. Not unheard of, and because of the sensitivity of it all, we aren't allowed to touch the phones, except for the front desk ones. I usually played music to walk around, but this time, I'd left my phone to charge at the desk. There was no device on me that could have made a sound. The phone had since stopped ringing, and I was still alone. As I moved to the final part of the building for my patrol, I hear a small thud by the stairway at the back. That didn't bother me, but when I heard a female voice call out, "Help me," I froze. I stayed silent and didn't move for nearly 15 minutes. It took me a while, but I eventually called out and asked if someone was there. But I didn't dare go over there to try and see. I would have heard something or saw someone moving over there if there had been anyone. I didn't finish my patrol that hour and immediately returned to the desk downstairs where the lights were on in the lobby. My boss even asked me, and when I told him about it, he just nodded like, yeah, that happens sometimes. I didn't hear anything else the entire time I worked there after that. I even checked the cameras that were in that area, and there was no one there. I always used to figure ghosts were real, or I wanted to believe they were, but that night completely proved to me that ghosts are real, and when one asks for help, you probably shouldn't risk yourself.
Well, my dude, I think you should have investigated the situation a little bit closer. I mean, you didn't even grab the ghost's employee number. Next, we have one all the way from Australia. It's a tale we call the Shadow People.
Me and my sister recently found out that we saw the same things growing up in our home. Me and my sister were recently talking about things we saw in our house growing up. We both, independently, saw the same things. I don't remember how the conversation began, but my sister mentioned that she used to see shadow people in the house growing up. I said, I saw them in Mom and Dad's bathroom, especially when I'd go in their room at night. I'd go into my parents' room at night after nightmares, and would watch 5+ figures walk from my mom's closet to my dad's closet, and around the corner where the bathtub and toilet were out of sight. When my mom would tell me it was time to return to my own bed, I'd be petrified with fear. She'd have to walk me back to bed, because I couldn't dare get out of her bed and walk past her bathroom to leave, alone. My sister asked me how many I saw in their bathroom. I told her there were definitely more than 5, but I could never get an exact count. They moved past and through each other, and I could keep count any time I watched them. She thinks there's as many as 11 in there. This was weird to me, but I thought maybe she was just playing along with me. So I asked her about the one in the laundry room. The laundry room door entered straight into a hallway that led all the way through the house to the kitchen and living room. The kitchen and living room were an open floor plan. So, exiting the hallway, there was a kitchen on your left and a couch and TV to your right. If you walked straight ahead from the hallway, you'd reach a glass sliding door to the backyard. So there was an uninterrupted walking path from the laundry room, through the hall, all the way to the glass door. There was a shadow figure I saw many times growing up. It would start in the laundry room and sprint, clear as day, down the hallway, through the kitchen and living room, and disappear near the glass door. You could see each limb clearly swinging, like a human's arms and legs would, as it sprinted through the house. It moved fast. When I asked my sister if she had seen the shadow figure in the laundry room, she made a bit of a face and said, "It doesn't stay in the laundry room." I asked what she meant, and she described exactly what I used to see. A very clear and obvious person-shaped shadow, running through the house and disappearing near the glass door. I never had told her that I had seen this before. There's no way she could describe exactly what I used to see when I lived in the house, unless she had been seeing it too. But it absolutely blows my mind that we both saw shadow figures doing the same things in the places.
Well, that's a hell of a thing, ain't it? But hey, at least you got some validation on what you saw as a child. Next, we have one about some dudes that go on a camping trip they are not too likely to forget anytime soon. We call this tale the Native Pit.
My dad's story, not mine. Early 1980s, he is working a summer job at Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming. One day, he and his friend Mark hiked up to the top of one of the mountains. They set up their tent inside an Indian pit, a man-made hole dug out by Native Americans hundreds of years ago. The Indian pits were either used as hunting blinds or spots where young braves came to for their vision quest. Late in the night, my dad wakes up and has to use the bathroom, number 1. He crawled out of the tent, out of the pit, and went walking a respectable distance away from the tent. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder pull him backwards. My dad calls out, "Hey Mark, what are you doing?" He turns around, turns on his flashlight, and there is nobody there. He shines the light at his feet and discovers that his next couple steps would have taken him directly over a steep cliff. He did his business and hurried back to the tent. The next morning, the two friends are waking up, and his buddy says to him, "I know this sounds crazy, but I woke up in the middle of the night, and I swear to you, there was an Indian man standing outside our tent." Whatever really happened that night, my dad is alive, he met my mom in Yellowstone, and here I am writing this story to you today.
Well, it kinda sounds like that native ghost saved your entire bloodline. Moving on to the next one, this OP gets a blast from the past. We call this one the Hippy Ghost.
This true event occurred back when I was in high school at a house my parents were renting in Houston, Texas back in the early 1980s. One day my brother Joel and I were home alone while my parents were out. I was sitting on the couch watching TV while my brother was in his bedroom asleep. To better understand how creepy this event was, first you must know that a lot of weird things had been happening in that house. We would see shadows move out of the corners of our eyes at times and hear footsteps when no one was there. Next door to our house was a burned-out home where the woods and weeds had grown over it from years of neglect. On that particular summer day while I was watching TV, my brother walked out of his room with a strange look on his face and told me, "Keep your friends out of my bedroom." I knew he had been asleep, so I told him, "Go back to sleep, dude, you're dreaming, no one else is here but you and me." But he insisted that a young guy in his teens with long blonde hair and wearing clothes from the 60s, tie-dyed shirt, was standing in his bedroom doorway when he woke up. He continued and said that the guy said nothing, he just nodded his head at him as to silently say, "Yeah, I see you too," and then just vanished. We both walked through the house but no one else was there, just my brother and me. The next day while I was cutting our lawn, I stopped for a few minutes to talk with our other neighbor across the fence, and happened to mention the weird things going on, and the event that my brother saw the day before. After describing what the teen looked like, my neighbor turned pale and pointed to that burned-down house next to us, and told me that when he was a kid in the late 60s, a young kid burned up in the house next door to us that fit that description. I felt chills run down my back. For years until we finally moved away, unexplained strange things would happen in and around the house, like doors slamming and the TV turning on and off on its own. It all stopped when we moved away.
Well, it's kinda weird that he thought it was one of your friends. I mean, he said the dude just vanished. So, do you have many friends that can just vanish like that? Just saying is all. Our last tale of terror for the night is about a house that is haunted by a former starlet. It just goes to show you that it will always be Anne's house.
In 1978, my parents bought a 30-year-old house, which was originally owned by an actress whose full name I will not reveal. Anne was her first name. She was famous in the 30s through 50s era. Anyway, I was born in 1979, and from an early age I remember a few instances where I was spooked. My first odd experience occurred one normal night when I was about 4 or 5 years old. For some reason I awoke and got out of bed. I heard something in the kitchen which was directly down the hallway from my doorway. It was very late or early in the morning. When I peered down the hallway, I saw a rabbit on our kitchen counter. Its eyes were bright and its body was almost see-through, like a projection. I was scared and tired, so I ran across the hallway to my older sister's room and slept there the rest of the night. Sure enough, nobody believed me the next day. Over the next few years, I always heard noises in my closet and cupboards in my bedroom, and all the while living there, I always heard shuffling and pounding in a large walk-in safe in the downstairs part of our house. In the 10-year span living there, I always felt like I was being watched, and I would never go inside the house unless my parents or someone else was with me. When I got off the school bus, I would wait outside until my mom got home. It was not until my mother told me a few things that she probably would not have revealed had she known how I would react. I overheard my mother talking to my aunt about how the previous owner told her that an actor by the name of Anne Blank had built the house. Even more interesting, the previous owners laughingly said they would occasionally see her walking down the halls. Once, my mother even admitted to me that she was home alone reading in the living room when she felt someone touch her on the shoulder. It was a comforting gesture, but scared her when she turned and saw no one around. I was scared of that house. When I was about 12, we moved to a house my dad built, same city but miles away from the old house. The first night staying there, I remember waking and looking out my bedroom window to see a white figure running down the lonesome road at a swift and graceful pace. Also, my beloved dog was in my sight, and he ran from the object with his tail in between his legs. Not typical. This dog was a butt-kicking machine. It was weird, but I was able to fall back asleep. Next day, nobody took me seriously. The last incident happened shortly after. I remember just laying down in my bed. It was a matter of seconds before I saw this woman hovering over me, and she did not speak, but it was like she said, "I have followed you." I laid there paralyzed, but managed to say, "Get out, leave me alone." And ever since, I have been totally ghost-free. Knock on wood. Long, maybe boring story for you guys, but real to me. Too real.
Well, I don't know if you're a fan of hers, but she seems to definitely be a fan of yours. She did, after all, follow you from house to house. That was some scary stuff tonight, wasn't it? But do you know what is not scary? Hitting like, subscribe, and sharing this video. It'll really help us keep the ghosts at bay. And of course, if any of you have a story to share, then by all means, drop me a line in the comments. But I do want to thank you for stopping by, and I hope the stories we told won't be giving you too many bad dreams. But if they do, then maybe you shouldn't run from them. After all, sometimes it's better to embrace your nightmares.